Three, two, one. Hi, welcome to our webinar. Our special guest today is Mark Bittner. Welcome, Mark.
Hello.
Can you hear us? So this is for, let's see, the webinar today is the Parrots of Telegraph Hill. Where are they now? The wild parrots of Telegraph Hill. Where are they now? And so we're gonna have an opportunity to talk with Mark about, gosh, I guess all things Parrots of Telegraph Hill as far as back then and then now, an update, all that great stuff. We'll give people like a minute to log in. While we do that, Mark, I see that you have a musical background, obviously, and I see do you tickle the keys on the piano back there?
I don't play piano very well, but I use it to work with singing. I sing a lot.
Nice. And so do you sing to the birds?
Well, yeah, we have a good night song. Well, we have two birds living with us from the flock.
Okay.
Birds that rescues that can't be released, but that's my only contact with the flock these days.
Okay. And so you have a nightly song for them. That's pretty cool.
I don't always sing it, but they love it.
Are they like the like the dancing type? Like a lot of birds have that groove that's
No, they don't dance, but they respond to music. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. See, I don't play an instrument, but luckily I can play, music, radio. So that's as far as I can go with birds.
Yeah, right.
But I think if you can actually play an instrument and sing yourself, that's like luckier bird than the average. So, even if it's out of tune, because not all of us are equipped with nice vocals.
Well, I have acoustic guitar and electric guitar, and they don't like electric guitar.
Really?
They complain when I play electric guitar.
Huh.
Often, not always, but often. And acoustic guitar, they don't mind.
That is fun. They don't like the plugins.
Yeah. The volume. I think they don't like anything that's louder than them.
Oh, that is so funny. Yeah, because you could probably hit the higher pitch like a conure pitch on an electric guitar as opposed to
they bend the note and it screams.
That's awesome. Okay, I think so. We'll officially get our webinar started in a second, and I just want to remind our participants that if you have a question for Mark, to use the Q&A button and not the chat feature. That way we can capture it. And let's see here. So I think that's So that's out the door there. Just remind you to use the Q&A button and not the chat feature. And we're getting we are getting a lot of hellos, so this is pretty cool. And we'll just see people trickling. So anyways, so Mark, a little introduction for you is I know that you have a musical background, and you actually wrote the book, The Wild Parrots of Telegraph Hill, and you were the featured player in the movie, the documentary, The Parrots of Telegraph Hill.
Featured.
You were like the movie was focused on
yes.
you.
Okay, I thought you meant player as in musician, and no, I didn't.
No. You were the guy. You were the guy in the movie.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about that experience? I imagine, actually,
Making the film.
Never had happen to me. I never had cameras follow me around as I do wonderful things. So what was your experience like with that? Like, do you want to start from the beginning of how this all started?
Sure. Well, when I was feeding the birds, I loved the experience. It was really colorful, and I knew I wouldn't be doing it forever. My situation was such that I'd be leaving eventually. And I, was hoping all along that somebody would come along and do a little video of some kind, just so that I could have something to keep for my memories, because it was so visually beautiful, visually interesting. And I recognized them individually. So that was already in play when Judy came along and was interested in making a film. So I was happy to do that. She's always looking for subjects as a documentary filmmaker, and I was local, and she was kind of tired of traveling far afield to make movies. She wanted to do something that was near where she lived. She lived in another part of San Francisco. So, I just got into it as a creative project. I didn't think it was going to be anything like it became. At first, actually, it was going to be a children's film, because she thought I was kind of inarticulate. So she thought that she needed some kind of support from me, that I would just be standing there feeding the birds while these children were interacting with the birds and me or something. But that didn't work out either. And what actually happened was that I was telling stories to the children in between takes. I mean, filming has a lot of, time when there's nothing to do. So I'd start telling the kids stories just to keep them interested. And she saw that I could talk. So that's when the focus of the film switched.
That's pretty cool. I'm going to try real quick. I just to show the trailer for the movie, so people can kind of. I'm going to assume that a lot of our audience today has seen the movie or at least heard of it. And let's see if this. I'm going to make sure my screen share. Hopefully this works. I apologize if it doesn't, but let's see here. Okay. Okay. Let me know if you guys can see my screen. Yes, hopefully. Here we go. Can everyone see that? Or Mark, can you see that?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. Here we go. Let's see.
It wasn't a plan, it just happened. I didn't expect it to go this far.
Sorry, you'll watch yourself on. That's what we're talking about. This is the movie right here. The preview.
I've been involved with these birds for 5.5 years now.
Whoa!
They're wild birds.
The only thing that anybody could think of is that they flew off from a ship.
A truck that was delivering parrots had an accident.
There was this crazy woman who had a store, and she opened up all the doors and birds flew all out.
I saw these wild parrots. They were a big mystery to me, and I wanted to find out who they were. I was the only one studying them. I was always worried that people were going to think of me as eccentric. How do you get so attached to an animal?
After you leave, what will happen to these birds?
I can't take them with me, obviously.
So where are you going to go?
I have no idea. I'll miss you, Mingus. We do a lot of bad things to animals because we don't believe that they feel anything. They're afraid of death, they're afraid of injury, they're afraid of being alone. Like us.
Well, I got me a roof, and I got me some clothes, and I eat real good, man, I overdose. When it gets dark, you know, I turn on the light, put on my shades when the sun's too bright. Every comfort for every climb, I still can't get me no peace of mind.
I still love that. that just gives me chills. I love the part where you say that that they're animals, but they still feel pain. They still feel the same emotions and stuff that we feel. So that was very yeah. So that was a walk down memory lane for you, probably. Have you seen?
Yeah,
I recently.
I haven't been studying it or anything. And actually, I should say what's happening with the film right now. The film was originally on all the usual platforms, iTunes, Amazon, all of that. And then it sort of fell off because Judy's company is an independent nonprofit. She didn't have the money to do a high resolution scan. It was a standard definition scan. And the major platforms want high resolution scans now. So she found somebody to donate the cost of a scan. It's very expensive. They scanned the entire negative of the original print, the very first generation. And there's always a lot of dust on the negative, and it has to be removed electronically. So it's been taking months, and it's going to take months more, but she's busy removing that dust so that it can be released again on the usual platforms, the major platforms, as a high definition film.
Oh, that's exciting. Wow. Yeah. That's quite a project.
But exhausting. Yeah.
I think it'll get a new, it's just going to be great. It's going to have a new revival. People that haven't seen it are going to be able to view it. So
it'll look nicer too. I mean, it's a much more, she's always impressed with how the colors pop and how clear everything is.
Wow. Okay. So do you want to, I mean, just from the very, like the start where you are, you're in San Francisco and you see this wild flock of parrots, like how does it go from seeing them to being like, becoming a huge part of their lives?
It was very strange because it did seem like it was destined, because I was at somebody's house and I saw them one day at the window at a feeder, 4 of them, just when the flock was really small. And I was, what is this? I didn't know anything about parrots, and I'd never heard of there being wild parrot flocks in the United States. So it was a complete mind blower to me. And then I remember a little while later, I don't know, weeks, months, I started seeing them near where I lived. And I was just fascinated. And around the same time, I was getting into feeding wild birds, the native wild birds, from a fire escape on this building that I was caretaking. And one day, one of the parrots flew over to see what the wild birds were eating. I didn't think the parrots would come near. I'd never seen them on a building. I'd just only seen them in trees. So, I mean, like, I was stunned. I went, I just had to see it. And I just kept getting closer and closer to them. They kept coming back every day to get the seeds. I kept getting closer to the door where there was a window that I could sit down in front and watch them. And eventually they just, I would have to open the door to refill the little seed dish. And it just kept getting more and more comfortable with each other. And then one day, because of a problem I was having with the guy who lived below me, he was getting tired of the mess. Yeah. I was supposed to scare them away, but I didn't want to terrify them. So I stepped out slowly just to get them to leave. And they just sat there looking at me. They'd gotten so used to me that they weren't afraid of me. Oh, and then it all proceeded from there.
But did you think that one parrot that first landed near you, it's like, okay, everybody, it's safe here. This is good. This is
well, it was sort of like that. I mean, I can still see him in my mind. He did this sort of curved, arcing flight. I can still see it, and then he landed on the dish. Sunflower seeds.
Oh man, and so how many birds are we talking about? Like this initial, come
on,
on,
26. At that time, there were 26.
Okay, it's a big,
yeah. The flock had grown from when I first saw them, and it wasn't just like there wasn't a pair and then they started having babies. Other birds were joining the flock because I saw about 5 or 6 birds that were banded, that had import bans, quarantine station bans. So they were wild caught parrots that had been shipped up here. And then wild cherry-headed conures, I don't know. I suspect there might have been a local distributor and he had access to wild caught cherry heads, and people were getting fed up with them and getting rid of them because they were noisy or they bit or they were escaping, whatever. But it was started by wild birds.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I like the part in the movie where the people have their own thoughts on how the birds got there from a pet store release.
Yeah. Every one of them is wrong, I think.
Really? So what is your official take on where
I don't know. I never was able to figure it out. I was always hoping someone would come along and say, well, here's how it happened. But I don't think any of the stories that are told are true, but they were very typical of what you'd hear all the time from people.
Yeah. I know one thing that I kind of saw a similarities in is that we've got some wild parrots here where I am in Southern California. And I've noticed that they're kind of by port cities, like there's San Diego, has one, LA.
Yeah. Well, they're near airports.
Yeah, and so
that's what often happens. I was told, I read over and over again that there would be handling accidents at airports because they were flown into cities on planes. And I was assured that it had happened out at San Francisco Airport, among other places.
Huh. Yeah, and so how long? So if you've been, if you started to feed the parrots and they start to recognize you specifically as a friendly human.
Yeah.
How long did that take? And would you literally be like walking from your door to somewhere and like being followed by parrots?
No,
like that?
It was never like that. But we did a test once. There was a woman who was had a feeder over in another part of the city. And the question was, if I went there, would they recognize me? And I did, and they did. They knew.
Oh, they did.
Yeah. It was sort of like, what are you doing here? But, they recognized me.
And in the video or in the movie, there's looks like you've actually been able to have them like land on like that kind of comfortableness. Is that what
they would land on me? Yeah, but they would not let me touch them. They did not want my hands on them.
Okay.
They didn't trust my hands.
Unless you had food in it, maybe they.
Well, they would take it from an open palm, but they would not. I couldn't pet them.
Okay.
I could mess with their beaks. They didn't mind if I would like shake their beaks and stuff. We could wrestle that way.
Huh.
But I was not allowed to pet.
Yeah. Kind of like a dog that might not know you, doesn't want you immediately to touch the top.
Well,
of
I just feel like that hand around their wings is dangerous. Possibly.
Yeah. And you probably so the main species of parrots that we're talking about are cherry-headed conures, is that right?
They were all cherry heads except for 2 blue crowns, and then later a miter showed up, and she started breeding with the cherry heads. And there are now a lot of hybrids within the flock because of her, and the hybrids are fertile. So you have some strange looking cherry heads at times.
I wonder where the blue heads came from. That's
yeah, I don't know. They were both wild caughts also.
Okay. And were they just be separated from the others, or were they kind of all became a wild flock together?
They were a little ostracized a little bit, but they were generally with the flock. Connor, who's the most famous blue crown of the pair, I brought him into the house for a while because I thought his other mate died, and somebody gave me a blue crown, and I thought he would like to have a friend, and he did, and he came into the house, and he clearly knew houses already. He'd been a pet for a long time, but he was originally a wild caught because he had the wild caught band. But he knew houses, he knew about windows, he knew all of that stuff. And he was very cooperative, but when he was outside, he acted like a wild bird. He'd come in if he felt like it. But that's all.
Kind of like a cat.
Yeah. Sort of like a cat.
And so I was, as far as the humans in your community, what were like you mentioned that the guy didn't like the bird droppings around the building. Were most people receptive to this interaction, or?
Yeah, most people thought it was beautiful. I mean, it was a charming story to a lot of people. I did it in private for the longest time. And then finally the media started to find me. This was before Judy's movie. And CNN wanted to do a story on me, and I was really reluctant. And I said, okay, I'll let you have access to the birds, but you can't show me. And and that just didn't go for it. Yeah. Well, in any case, I just gradually, stopped worrying about that so much.
When you say you fed him for a long time, are we talking like
6 years?
Okay, that is a long time. That is a long time.
I did that. It was basically all I did for 6 years.
So that's a lot of work for feeding that many mouths to feed, right?
Yeah, I had people donating seeds, and I had odd jobs that I did. Didn't have to pay rent, so all I had to do was feed myself.
Yeah. And like, did you have like morning feed, midday feedings?
Just whenever they showed up.
Yeah, whenever they showed up, which I'm sure being conures, they probably came with their appetites quite a bit.
Well, there was a thing where they slept in a park not far from here, about a mile, and they'd get up and they'd take off as a flock, and I'd be their first stop usually. And then they just, continue on. They were not really ever living on Telegraph Hill. The name, the wild parrots of Telegraph Hill, is a misnomer because that's what people were calling them. I was asking around about them. I'm going, what is this? And people would say, oh, that's the wild parrots of Telegraph Hill, because these were people on Telegraph Hill who figured that they must live here, but they didn't ever live here. They never nested here. They never did anything here but passed through to eat. There's a lot of gardens, so there were trees that they were eating from before I came along.
So where do they normally, so they're like in a park setting mostly?
Yeah, they're in a park near the downtown, ironically enough.
Do they, I just wonder if they're having like their biggest predators would be like hawks in the area, or wild hawks, or cats and stuff.
And taxi cabs. Several times I've heard of them smashing into taxi cabs when they fly low.
Oh no.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know why. Maybe they're attracted to the yellow color or something, or maybe it's just accident, but I've heard this several times.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. So the movie, when Judy shot the documentary, what was the time span? Like, was that something that was shot over the course of months?
The last year I was doing it, basically. she came in a year before I had to go. And at the time I'd gotten the message that I was going to have to leave, but it just kept getting extended. So we were in a sweat during the whole time. She wasn't sure she was going to have enough time to get enough footage to tell the whole story. And I always want to tell people that there's a big difference between my book and that film, because my book does tell the whole 6-year story, whereas her film focuses on just that last year. And the character, she doesn't like to recreate stories. So we just tell stories about birds that were still alive in that last year. My favorite bird in the whole flock isn't in the movie at all.
Oh, wow. Is that, well, did you have a name for that bird? Is that the one that
Dogan. Dogan,
Okay.
yeah. Dogan was a bird that was, got sick, and I brought her in, and she became my best friend, basically. And then when she was good enough, well enough to be released, she'd come back to visit. And that was like the charm of that story for me.
Oh, wow.
But she died before Judy came along.
Oh,
I
so
think
did you
I
have,
got her.
did you have like an open, kind of open window for her, like a kind of open
Well,
door
it was
policy?
just what she knew my routines. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I would be sitting out on the front porch, and if she saw that I was eating something that she loved, she'd fly down and chow down with me. That happened a lot. Like she liked oatmeal and she loved pasta. And if she saw that I was eating either one of those, she would, and she was flying through, she'd stop and come eat with me.
Oh, that's it. And so we're talking, so the now people, there is a misnomer. People think of California as being sunny all over the state, and it's always sunny weather.
Yeah.
But in San Francisco, they call it, what's the famous saying for San Francisco? It's like the coldest summer you'll ever spend is in San Francisco.
Yeah, the coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco. Nobody knows who said it. They always give the credit to Mark Twain, but he didn't say it.
Okay. Because I know, like San Francisco, even when I'm passing through it, it'll be like 90 degrees everywhere else, and it's like 20 degrees cooler in San Francisco.
Yeah, it'll be like 65, and then it's 90 just 2 miles away.
Yeah. So the parrots seem to adapt well to little bit foggy but colder weather, right?
I saw them do well in 28 degrees.
Wow.
That's rare for San Francisco, but it was 28 degrees once, a particularly cold spell we had once, and didn't affect them at all. They were indifferent to it.
Huh. And then I imagine they probably just, being a flock, they can kind of just huddle together with the colder weather.
Well, I think an ornithologist told me that the down layer would take care of it. The only real question is food, if they can get enough food. Cold is not an issue.
Oh, okay. Do you know what other food sources they would get to besides your feeding?
Yeah, they ate a lot of different stuff. They ate juniper berries. They ate, all kinds of different blossoms. They ate apples, trees. They would memorize whenever a particular tree was in fruit. People were telling me all the time, like, yeah, I never see them until, July when they come in. They eat blackberries. They'd eat a lot of things that I don't remember anymore, but they were eating out of all kinds of trees. They still do. Loquats was a favorite, and there's a lot of loquat trees around this part of the town.
Huh. So are they, do you ever see them like scavenging, like, you see the crows that'll pick up a fast food bag and...
No, they never go on the ground.
They don't.
They stay in the trees, yeah.
So they're tree foragers, or they're not ground foragers.
Arboreal, I think it's
yeah. So can you give us, bring us up to date now that, so people have seen the movie, that came out in 2003, and then where the movie ends, like where does that take us to now? I know that there was some talk about the poisonings in the area, right? You want to take us?
Okay, well, I won't give away the ending to the film in case anybody hasn't.
Oh yeah, not the ending.
Hasn't seen it, but I left Telegraph Hill at the end of the movie, and then I later moved back. And I'm living in a house right next door to where I used to feed them. I was occasionally, I was real busy at that point when the movie and the book came out, because I was traveling constantly to promote them. And I did not have much contact with the flock when I moved back here, but I did start feeding them. And then I had a problem with a group of people that was feeding them downtown in a park. They were getting too tame. Birds were starting to get grabbed and taken home, and it was like, that was just angered me greatly, because if the book and the film created that kind of effect where they were losing their liberty because people were so absorbed with what was going on, it meant that to me was the projects were failures. So I had to actually go to the city and get a law passed to stop these feedings in public parks. And it was the New York Times, everybody was covering it, and I was being called this hypocrite and all kinds of things. But I just couldn't stand to see them losing their freedom because of this. And the people that were feeding them were intransigent. So I got the law passed, and then I had to go talk to the police department and get them, they're busy with all kinds of serious stuff, and it's hard to get them to be too concerned about people feeding birds. But they understood what I was saying. I didn't try to make too big of a deal out of it. You have to be careful. And they were helpful, and eventually it stopped.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But it was a real problem for a while. Birds were losing their freedom because of these people being selfish, really.
Wow. Yeah. I imagine you're taking them from the wild and bringing them into an environment they're not used to. That's
well, they were happy as wild critters, and people were grabbing them, taking advantage of their trust. And I did not like that, because to me, the beautiful thing about them was seeing them as free birds.
Yeah, let them do their birdie thing out there.
I would like to say one thing too. When I was for the 6 years I was with them, I was consistently seeing this problem of birds getting really sick and having neurological problems. And I was never able to figure out what it was. I didn't have the resources. And since I quit feeding them, there's this organization called Mickaboo, which started out as a cockatiel rescue organization, but they filled the gap after I left of taking in birds that were sick. They go into animal care and control in San Francisco. People, find them and take them to animal care and control. And then animal care and control invariably calls Mickaboo. Mickaboo's been spending a tremendous amount of money and putting in a tremendous amount of resources into taking care of these birds. And they have a $15,000 vet bill a month.
Wow.
Just taking care of sick parrots and wild parrots, the sick parrots. And they were able to figure out that what I was seeing, they did necropsies, and they paid for necropsies. And it turns out it's bromethylene, which is a rat poison. So they're somehow getting into rat poison, and it's killing some of them. But there was a story about them in the local newspaper that I think got passed along to some other news outlets that made the flock. It made it seem like the flock was dying out, but that's not the case. There's only a certain percentage of them that are coming down with this problem, but it still happens.
Okay, so it sounds like Mickaboo is just they're really doing what they can to help the ones that are.
They're doing a tremendous job. Yeah, they take care of them, and if they can't be returned to the flock, they find homes for them.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Let me see. I think we also have some great questions that are coming in for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Let's see. I'll find you. And sorry, hold on once. Some are still coming in. Okay. So, Mark, while I wait for, okay, here we go. Linda asked, Mark, will you use Roberta's song when the film comes out again? From Linda Womack, you must know them.
I know what she's talking about. She's talking about Roberta Fabiano, who wrote a song called Duggan, Connor, and Tupelo, and it's in the DVD. It's a DVD extra. I don't know how we would fit that in, but I love that song. I love what she did with it. I actually made my own little music video of it, which is on the DVD. It's a beautiful song. I don't know how we'd use it, but I don't want that song to disappear at all. No.
Oh, maybe you can on the DVD bonus.
Yeah, well, they don't do DVDs anymore. Nobody's.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Now, if you're streaming online, you don't get the bonus. Something. Yeah, that's too bad. So they should add that back. Let's see here. And then and your book is still available, right?
Yeah, it's still in print. Okay. Yes.
So and is it, where's the best place for people to find information on is it the Pelican Media website?
Information on the flock?
on just the book and the movie updates? And all that?
Well, both pelicanmedia.org and my website, markbittner.net, has information. Yeah, I just started this website after letting the old one die, and I'm going to be adding more stuff. There's not a lot of stuff on about the parrots at the moment, but there will be more soon.
Okay. And so let's see, there's a question. How does one feed the wild birds without having them become dependent on it? It's fine balance, right?
Yeah, I don't know. When I knew that I was leaving, I started weaning them. I would feed them like, every other day, and then once every 3 days, and all of that kind of stuff. But the thing with the feedings was, I noticed this all the time. If I wasn't around, they just went back to their usual sources. They never stopped eating out of the trees. I was just one thing that I was, one source of food. That's all.
Like a supplemental, like, hey, they got some great.
I was French fries, sunflower seeds.
There we go.
Fat.
So they were getting their their other stuff.
Fat.
Well, I think it also shows us how much foraging means to parrots and their overall health. Is they're getting, like you mentioned earlier, they would know when certain trees would ripen for certain times of the year. So
they're expending energy all day long, and they need to keep eating. They're sprinters. Like, they don't fly long distances. They might travel a long distance in a day, but they're usually going like from one tree they know about to another tree they know about to another tree they know about, and then just traveling that way. You don't see them flying great long distances in the air.
Okay, but you certainly hear them.
Yeah. I could always hear them even in the most loud environment. I was so used to them, like busy streets, and they were in a faint sound in the background. I could hear them every time.
Oh, that's so funny. All right. So Ellen asked, do you have any companion birds now?
Yes.
Any birds in your life?
Yeah. There are two. They're both from the flock. They were both born the same year. They're both going to be 20 years old this July. Big Bird and Parker. Big Bird, when she was about a month out of the nest, was flying down a hill real fast and hit a plexiglass windbreak, knocked herself out, and it was on a garden roof. And the woman found her, thought she was dead, and brought her to me. And she was just a baby, and I had to feed her because she wasn't weaned. And by the time she would have been healthy enough to leave, she was too tame to release.
Okay.
And then the other one has severe neurological damage, and Parker, but they were both born the same year. He's crippled in a lot of ways, but he's like almost 20, and so that's a long life for one of the birds from the flock.
Are they bonded to each other? Do they like
sort of?
Are they?
I don't know. In a way, I think Big Bird would love. I mean, Parker would love somebody else other than Big Bird. She's kind of a handful, but they're they pal around all day long, but they get in fights a lot. But all parrots do, as far as
they're like sibling rivalry. And these are the two that you have a nightly song too. So right.
Yeah.
And then Grace wanted to know, do you keep in touch with the person who oversee the flocks in Brooklyn? So apparently
I was for a while. I know who she's talking about, but I haven't had. He's a nice guy. I really like him, but I mean, I just get busy and life takes me where it does. But I haven't had Steve, I think is his name. And I liked him a lot. He's a nice guy. He's very funny. He wrote a song about the Brooklyn Parrots, which is hysterical.
Oh my God. What species are they? I remember this years ago. I forgot.
Canary wings.
Oh, okay.
Wait a minute. They're not canary wings. What am I talking about? They're monk parakeets.
Oh, or Quaker. Yeah. They're the ones that have the elaborate nests in the wild.
They're the controversial ones. Because there's a lot of people that are afraid that they eat crops.
Yeah.
They're banned in some states.
Yeah, California being one of them.
Yeah, California one of them.
So then Charlotte wanted to ask, what is the status of the parrots now? So we kind of mentioned a little bit, but you want to go in more detail?
When I left the flock, there were around 55 or 60, and that was late 1999. And the latest Audubon Society count puts them at somewhere between 200 and 400. So they're doing fine. I see them fly by. They're always looking healthy. when I do see them. We sometimes get visitors at the windowsills because they'll see Big Bird and Parker and they're curious. But they're just living their lives as wild birds, and they're not having any major problems. They're not having any greater problems than any wild animal does. And they're respected around town. I mean, you see them, like there's a big mural that went up in another part of town recently, and their parrots are one of the themes of it. They're just sort of like, they're the part of the local culture now. So they're loved and they're protected.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And have they been, do you know if, like, I guess these flocks have been seen anywhere else in the country? So when, like, the cherry, I guess, I mean, there are different species flocks that are in different
there's
areas.
flocks all over the country and a different species. There's a flock down in Sunnyvale, south of here, which is, I'm told, mostly cherry heads. And there's some hybridization in it. There are cherry heads down near Malibu. And then Pasadena has this enormous flock of Amazons, huge, like 4,000 birds. I don't know. I saw it once. They're in Florida, Texas, New York City. I mean, there's Long Island, Baldwin, New York has a mitered conure flock, or they did. There's flocks in Chicago, monk parakeets. They're all over the place.
Interesting. It's interesting that it sounds like a lot of them are like South American species, or like conures, Amazon, but not like cockatoos or like.
Yeah, well, I don't know why that is in particular, other than how all of the birds that are wild here come through the bird trade, and all these flocks got started before 1993, and that's when the ban on 1993 was when they stopped allowing wild caughts to be imported into the United States. So that's where they're getting started, from wild caught birds that knew how to be wild. My own feeling is that a breeder raised bird would not make it in the wild, because for one thing, like the babies are with their parents almost a full year, so there's a lot of learning that goes on. But I have never seen a pet bird with the flock that lasted for very long. Every now and then a budgie will fly with the flock for a while, but they don't last very long.
Oh wow, yeah, the budgies, little guys. That's interesting. I think is that in the documentary? I thought there was a budgie.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Okay.
Smitty.
So let's see here. Oh, so someone wanted to know how they could donate to Mickaboo for helping the flock. So I'm sure there's a website for them we can put up with the.
They really need the help too, because they're doing a great thing. And it's really, I'm amazed at the length they go to help the parrots. Yeah,
that's some dedicated work there. Because you're dealing with, not only are they dealing with helping the wild parrots, but also finding rehoming pet parrots. So that's a lot to take care of there. So Tracy want to know, did you eventually understand a lot about the conure local calls, vocal calls? Like, did you?
Yes. Yeah.
They're always communicating.
Yeah, I could. I don't. It's funny. I went back after I left. I went back when I moved out of the area for a while, and then I came back one day, and I remember standing there listening to them and going, there was something that's nonverbal that I understood. They were okay. They were fine. I understood. I know the sound they make when they sense a hawk. It's so long ago now that I'm starting to lose my memory of some of this stuff. But I did know calls. I mean, like if I was doing a feeding and they were getting ready to go, like they were getting ready to end the feeding, I'd recognize the first parrot who was saying, "Let's go, let's get out of here." I'd say, "Oh, they're getting ready to go." And I remember once at a feeding, there were people watching me feed, and we're talking back and forth, and suddenly I heard that one bird say, "Let's go." And I said to the people that were watching me, "Oh, they're getting ready to leave." And then moments later, they all took off in a flash. So, it was like, how did you do that? But you get used to it after a while. There's context for everything.
Yeah. Do they do so? And let's say like when you notice they're raising chicks and stuff. I know like crows will, if there's an invader, like a predator, like a falcon or something coming in the picture, they'll chase them off. You know, like they'll mob attack them. I guess, and even small birds do it to crows and so on and so on. Do you ever see that behavior with the parrots protecting?
No, they're kind of chicken.
They're chicken.
They're more passive that way. They fight other parrots. Like if you had a recently released, like if a bird recently escaped from a home and was flying with the flock for a while, they would be very aggressive with it, but they ignore all the other birds. It's really parrots that they're concerned with.
I know that there's parrot bickering goes on within the flocks. So,
yeah.
That's interesting. Let's see. Someone says, Francis says they fly over my house in Cow Hollow at 7:30 every morning. I think it's going to Golden Gate Park to eat. Is that where you think they're headed?
Probably going to the Presidio.
Okay.
The Presidio to eat. Well, but they'll also, like between her place and the Presidio, there will be a lot of backyards that have trees in it it's not necessarily that they're going to a big place like that.
They're not like doing all the tourist traps. Like we're going to go to Alcatraz.
No. Well, they never fly over water for one thing, but she's probably seeing them fly. Yes, she's definitely seeing them fly west or sometimes southwest. But they're just heading for trees they know about.
Okay. And then Barbara wanted to know, do you stay in touch with Mingus?
Mingus died.
Oh.
I went down to visit Mingus before he died.
Okay.
He remembered me. I played some guitar. He didn't care. But Mingus, he's no longer with us.
Okay. All right.
He was down at the Oasis. Arizona.
In Arizona, right?
Yeah.
And then let's see. Tracy wanted to say that living back in the area, do you have privacy from the public, and are you able to enjoy your relationship with the parrots? So do you still get recognized? I mean, do you get recognized?
I get recognized occasionally, but not too often anymore. I mean, I used to get recognized a lot. People were nice about everything. I never had any problem with it. What was the second question?
If you're able to enjoy your relationship with the parrots still. I know that you mentioned earlier.
We have these two, and it's funny, Judy takes a bigger interest in them than I do, because I've been working on another book for the last 14, 15 years, and I'm always preoccupied with that in my head. So they're used to me just wandering around the house thinking, and I have some interaction with them, but Judy does most of the interacting with the two we have living here.
That's interesting. So I did have a question about Judy. And now, what was her experience or interest in birds before she started this project? Like, was there any?
She was raised by her grandfather was a birder and got her interested in birds as a young girl. He taught her how to feed chickadees by hand. And so she was always fascinated by that. And then she later got a cockatiel. And she had a cockatiel when she started making the movie. And she had Bird Talk magazine, and she saw an article that I'd written that Bird Talk had published. And that's how she found out about me, what I was doing.
Oh, interesting. So she comes from so birds were nothing new to her. It sounded like
nothing new to her at all.
Yes.
She made a movie about pelicans called Pelican Dreams after the Parrot movie.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And is that one? Is that one
available?
Is it okay? Is that a full-length feature or documentary?
Yes. Or is it... Yeah.
Okay, I have to check that. You guys check that out too. So Gala asks, I live in Redondo Beach and I see parrots that look like cherry heads. They are stopping at my loquats to feed. Have you heard if they are in the South Bay, of LA? Have you heard about any flocks?
I know that there are cherry heads near Malibu, and I don't know all the other species. Very often what it turns out to be is mitards. Mitards seem to be more common than cherry heads.
Okay.
But I would have to see them to know.
Yeah, I know that, for example, in my area, I'm in Southern California, Orange County area between LA and San Diego, and we got Amazons and up in Long Beach, they've got conures.
I've seen Nandays in
Nandays in Palisades and
Yeah.
Mount area.
Yeah.
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 Santa Monica area. Nanday conures.
Yeah.
Very loud.
Yeah.
Oh, and then so Ellen, I want to know, what do you mean when you say they're protected? Has it become illegal to pester them? There, and she mentions that there's wild flocks of lovebirds in Arizona that are originally from.
Yes, I saw the lovebirds in Phoenix once. They were in the backyard of some person I was visiting. They were, yeah, I remember them. When I say they're protected, technically there is a law that protects them. I don't know how much strength that law has, but they are popular, and a lot of their protection just comes from, you know, people loving the whole story and wanting there to be parrots flying around San Francisco. And if you try to bring them into your house and keep them from flying around, then people don't like that, because people, you know, it's just like this thing like, oh, I saw the parrots today, and people love that. So they're protected spiritually, I guess you could say, as well as legally.
Okay, and that's local to that area, not like, we're not talking statewide, or it's.
Yeah, no, I mean, there are places that would not want them. I mean, there a lot of farmers are paranoid about animals like parrots. But the thing is about that is that parrots cannot survive outside of urban and suburban areas, because they need they don't migrate. They're local, and there's not enough food growing in the wintertime in an agricultural area for them to survive. They need to be in an environment where, you know, people are planting stuff, and there's always something growing at all times of year.
Oh, well, that's why they're visiting people's backyards for their trees and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, we mentioned lovebirds in Arizona. There was a recent study, I believe, where they showed that on one of the college campuses there, that the lovebirds during the extreme dry heat would take turns on the air conditioning vents outside the building.
Well, yeah. I think I read something about that too. Yeah.
Pretty ingenious, right? Because like they can get, you know, really hot and dry in Arizona, and so they're getting a little reprise from the summer heat.
When I was in Australia, I went to Australia because the distributor brought me down there, and it was funny. I was seeing rainbow lorikeets, and I was seeing cockatoos, but I was still in this habit of I would be seeing white cockatoos on the tops of buildings, and I would go, oh, I wonder how that got loose. I kept forgetting over and over again that they're just native there. You know?
Yeah, they're like crows here.
Right.
That's awesome. Cindy mentions, I have a green cheek conure that got out and was gone for 14 months. Wow. I miraculously got her back, and she did have a lot of behaviors that showed me that she had to be outside for some time. That was in the Rochester, New York area. Huh. She did make sounds that I realized sounded like the house sparrows. Do you think she lived with the sparrows this whole time?
Parrots are gregarious. They seek company. I mean, it's entirely possible. I don't know, but there was a solitary cherry head here in San Francisco before the others joined, and he was traveling around with a flock of canary-winged parakeets because he needed company.
Well, they are social animals, right?
Yeah, very much so.
Wow, I would like to hear more about the backstory, Cindy, on your conure gone for 14 months. That's like, I have never heard of a bird on the lam that long. That's insane. That's quite impressive.
Rochester's cold too.
I know, right? That's even more impressive. Let's see. So, can you? Okay, so we're gonna circle back to the movie. If you want to just speak a little bit about the restoration of the movie and also the planned relaunch, what's going on with that? Because
they take the negative, the original negative that was shot in the camera, and that was spliced together to create the film. They scanned that. They ran it through a 4K scan, which is high resolution. It's actually it has a name, but it's higher than high, you know. And it's a 4K scan, and then she has this scan that they have to run it through another program, and they examine each frame. There'll be specks of dust on the original negative that got scanned onto the computer file. And there's this program, I think it's called Resolution. You have to take each dust speck out individually. And it takes a picture of the next frame in that same location where there isn't the dust, and it puts that little speck back there, covers the speck up. But it's a very tedious task. It takes forever to do it. Some frames are clean and don't need to have anything done to them, but some are really messy. Like especially where there's a splice, there will be glue from the splice that spreads out onto the frame on the side, and that's a lot of work to get that splice cleaned up.
Wow. I imagine the parrots, with their coloring and stuff, it'll make it look very vibrant once this is all in 4K, right?
Well, Judy's been working with, when she made the film, it was shot on film, 16 millimeter negative, but she immediately had that transferred to video to edit with. So she never saw that ever again. And then later, after she does the video edit, then they, compare everything back to the negative and they make a print.
Yeah.
And the print is one generation removed from the original. So she's never seen the original except in this scan. So she's looking at color, a colorfulness that she hasn't seen yet, ever.
Interesting. I'm imagining people wearing, kind of like in the Willy Wonka TV scene where they have like the hair cover it. You don't want dust. You don't want to contaminate the film with dust when you're doing this. So they're wearing like protective stuff on their, Yeah,
it's a massive job making a film. So, I mean, there are moments of mishandling, and it just, as you wind a film or negative on a reel, there's dust in the air, which gets on it, and it's unavoidable. But you don't want to see that on the finished product,
Yeah, that's going to be.
So,
I'm sure,
go ahead.
I'm sure that'll be a major celebration once this tedious process is finished and the new rebirthed documentary is available.
She hopes to finish it in June or July, and then there'll be some further work to do, but it'll get back out onto the major platforms and maybe even projected into some theaters in celebration of the event, or we'll see.
Yeah. And wait, you said it's gonna be like probably June or July. When did it start? When did they start the process?
I don't remember. It seems
like
she's been doing it forever.
Okay.
But I mean, I've been working on my book. I'm recording an album of songs. So I'm preoccupied with all of that. She tells me what she's been working on all day long. I tell her what I've been working on all day long, and then we crash.
Wow. So you guys have a very creative flow going back. Now, is your new book or your music have any kind of bird?
None at all.
No.
Well, none at all. But see, the thing was, it's about a journey to me that I started when I was 14 years old. And when I started feeding the parrots, it wasn't like some vacation I took from that journey. It was part of that journey. I didn't know it immediately, but I always had that sense. And I saw later that it really was. So the parrots were part of this journey that I've been on. The book talks about that journey, the early part of it, and the music is all related to it as well. I don't want to talk about it too much because it sounds pretentious to go on about it when you don't have the material there in front of you.
I mean, it could be even subconscious, just whether you have that in you, that inspiration from your experiences with working with the flock too. So.
I've just been working in a particular direction all my life. So what happens to me invariably is from that direction. Like my interest in the parrots initially was just I didn't have an interest in them as birds. I had an interest in them as this group of characters that were friends of mine that I really liked. And I would, there's Dogan today. Oh, I love to see Dogan, and it's just like, and there's Miles being Miles, and all of that kind of stuff. They were my friends. And it was a period of time when I was really alone a lot. So that was my group of friends. And I got into them more as friends than as birds. If that's true.
Pretty cool.
Sad maybe, but it's true.
I mean, it's very inspirational. I think that, I mean, if people just going out their front doors and really not just walking by, driving by, like the wildlife outside your door, like the wild birds that you see all the time, you can really find these interesting characters out there.
Right.
Like during this COVID lockdown, we started kind of feeding this local crows nearby, and we call one of them Dunker because I put out water dish, and whatever food you put out, he dunks, and so you kind of can build this enchanting environment around you that's already existing, you know what I mean? And I'm sure
we have raccoons and coyotes, and it's the same thing here on the hill. We see raccoons there's that one we call Mama, because she always brings out babies.
That's fascinating. And I know it'd be so exciting when the movie is relaunched, and I'm hoping, crossing fingers, that hopefully you and Judy can come by and give us the lowdown on that. Because
Judy would have shown up today, except that she'd forgotten about an obligation she had, that she's constantly being called on to do stuff. So she wanted to do this, but she couldn't, but she will eventually.
Okay. I mean, that'd be super. I mean, very exciting. I'm sure we'll definitely, we want people to know when it's available for, available to see the movie again, because
both Chris and Ted have been very good to us. So, we're happy to do this.
Awesome. No, it's just, we are very excited. I mean, it's just been a great experience to just it's very exciting to know that it's going to be available again. And Tracy wanted to know, this is probably our last question for this session, is during the movie, it showed the abundance of beautiful pictures you took and research that you logged in your diary. Are you going to be publishing your research and your experiences in a future book?
I don't know. I mean, I always hold that in abeyance. I have this massive collection of slides and this massive diary, and I would like somehow to do something with it. I have to finish the project that I'm on now. There's no way I can. I'm about 80 to 90% done with both the recordings and this other book. But then I still have this massive diary that has a lot of really good information in it. I could only use, the smallest percentage of the stories that I had to tell in my book, The Wild Parrots of Telegraph. So I don't know what to do with it yet, but I'll be thinking about that definitely.
So someday maybe. There we go. Yeah. Okay. Well, then just real quick, we do a giveaway every webinar to one of our participants, and they get a bag of Lafeber's new tropical fruit pellets, and then also a bag of other Lafeber food of their bird's choice. So today we have a lucky winner, and that is Elizabeth L. So congratulations, Elizabeth. And we'll be saying Lafeber office will be contacting you to send that out to you. Hopefully that makes your weekend. And Mark, this certainly has made my weekend, as well as I'm sure all of our viewers, because people really the movie. What's great about the Wild Parrots of Telegraph Hill is, bird enthusiasts obviously are going to love the movie, right? But it really resonated with people who don't know anything about birds or parrots, and just that's such a bridge, and just hopefully, people to have an appreciation for nature and
that was his name.
Yeah. So thank you for that. Really appreciate it. And just so we'll be crossing fingers that you and Judy can stop by in a future webinar, give us an update.
Okay.
And I just can tell everybody before we leave that next webinar, next Friday, is with Dr. Lamb, and she's going to be going over a topic that I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in, and that is picky eater tips and tricks. And it's basically how to get your bird to try new foods. So that's always a challenge for people. So, and I'm sure it'll be healthier food too. So, so anyways, I once again, Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. And again, we hope to have you guys back on with us. So it'd be awesome.
Okay.
So in the meantime, I just thank you, and everyone have a great weekend. All the best to you and your flock, and everyone stay safe. Bye.
Bye-bye.